Really?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for being here on this special session of the Solvang City Council for Saturday, February 6th. I'll call the meeting to order at 10:02. Madam Clerk, can I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Clark is absent today. He's out of town. Councilmember Infante.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Arona.
Here.
Councilmember Thomas.
Here.
Mayor Urick.
Here. And I think I'm going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this morning. So can I have everyone please stand? Place your hand over your heart and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Thank you. This time we have items of public comment that are for items that are not on the agenda today. And if there's anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on items that are not on the agenda,
Would anybody in person like to speak on items not on the agenda? Would anybody online with Zoom like to make a comment about anything that is not specifically on this agenda, just a general comment? If you would like to make a comment about an item not on the agenda, please raise your hand using the hand symbol on your Zoom. We still have a few people joining us right now, so I'll just give it a couple of minutes. Once again, it's items not on the agenda. You may speak now or raise your hand. I am not seeing anybody wishing to make a comment on items not on the agenda.
Madam City Clerk, would you read item number 2 into the agenda?
Item number 2 on the agenda, and is the only and the purpose of this meeting, is the comprehensive general plan update, first community workshop, and it is scheduled as a study session for the City Council, which means that the City Council is here to receive feedback, receive a presentation, make any comments, ask any questions of staff in the presentation, have this first opportunity to interact with the community on this first workshop. And there's no action that you need to take today. It's a study session and information for both the community and the council to kick off this process. So I will start by an introduction. This is the very first step in the kickoff of this process. It will take about 2 years for our community to go through this general plan update. It's the first comprehensive general plan update for the city of Solvang, which means that it's the first time when the city will be looking at all the elements all together. One of our very important elements that we have in the city of Solvang is the design element, which hasn't been updated formally through the general plan update since shortly after the city incorporated. So it's definitely an opportunity for community visioning and looking into the future for the next 20 years. We are also adding another element that wasn't here before in Solvang, and that's an economic development element. So that will be a new element added and will be part of the vision for the fiscal health of this community in the long range. So once again, general plan is a long-range planning document. It sets the vision and the goals for the community going forward. So this is a very important process for the city of Solvang, and it's really good to see so many people joining us today on Zoom. It seems to be like a great turnout for the first workshop. There will be plenty of opportunities after today to participate in this process. We will make sure that we can accommodate everyone using different platforms, the technology, and also making available paper copies of surveys. We'll have more workshops with the community, potentially pop-ups, and maybe smaller meetings if COVID doesn't allow us to have larger in-person meetings, but we will make sure that we accommodate all groups of the city of Solvang into this process. With that, I'd like to introduce our consultants who will be leading this process. They work with many communities on this general plan update, so this is their specialty, this is what they do. They were selected through a competitive process, and we are very happy to have them here today. They're with Minter Furnish, and we'll be running through the rest of the presentation, including interactive parts of it. And I will pass it on to Rick and Brent from here.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I'm Rick Rust with Mintier Harnish, as was mentioned before, and we're going to run through a short presentation for you today. And then we also have several interactive components. If we get, we're waiting to get our presentation shown up there. There we go. And during the event, we're going to ask you some questions which you'll be able to answer on the Zoom platform here today. So watch for those, and this is for us to get a little familiar with who's joining us today and start to have a conversation with the community. At the end of the presentation, we're also going to have time just for open comments to have you all tell us what you would like to see for the future. With me today is Brent Gibbons, who's the actual project manager for this, and both Brent and I will be major parts of this effort, and we'll be the ones that you're going to see at upcoming public events, and your point of contact for anything that you have to talk about as we go through this. Now, just a highlight of the firm, Mintier Harnish has been doing general plans in the state of California since 1985. And this is kind of our specialty, is doing general plan updates as well as doing zoning codes for the community. And the map on the screen there shows you all the locations that we have prepared general plan updates or housing elements for different communities and counties. General plans are also very comprehensive in nature, and to make sure that we cover this and have the experts that you need to make informed decisions about your future, we've included a number of other firms as part of what we're doing. For environmental, Rincon Consultants will be joining us. They will be looking at things such as sustainability and biological resources, water quality, air quality, etc., and will be part of the general plan process, as well as helping us develop what's called an environmental impact report, which talks about what would happen if we go forward with our general plan update. For economics, we have the Nattles and Dale Group. As was mentioned, we have an economics development element this time, and they'll also be looking at not only helping us develop that, but looking at what are the fiscal and financial implications of some of the things that we might be talking about doing in the future. And finally, firm DKS will be helping us with transportation or mobility. So looking not only at how we move through the community in our automobiles, but also how we deal with trucks, with other modes of transportation such as bicycles and pedestrian access. So they'll be looking at the complete picture of moving around the community. All right, let's see if I'm, did you make me a host? Or transfer me over to host so I can ask you some questions here. Give them just a minute. All right. So we're going to be asking about 7 different polling questions throughout this. And on your screen now, you should see 2 different questions. And if you could answer those 2 using your finger on your phones or a mouse and clicking the right boxes on computers or tablets. And then once everybody has provided input, we'll share a screen and you can see what everybody else is doing. So watching everybody move along. So we've had about 39 out of 57 voting so far. Still getting some more votes, so just give us a second here and we'll see what happened. All right, we've stopped getting new ones in, so I'm going to give you 5 more seconds, then we're going to close it off, so last chance. See the results? Yeah. So the results should pop up on your screen there. So if you ever participate in a virtual workshop, the majority of you have, so that's good. And then also in the second question, 60%, 61% of you thought that it was a more flexible approach. And that's what we're finding out is although we're required to do this now because of the COVID-19 issue, we're finding that these virtual meetings have some advantages in that they allow people to participate from the comfort of their home, allow you to participate at different times and places than you might normally be able to do if you're on travel for business, for instance. You can still participate in a meeting. But as we go forward, we're going to look at having a mixture. We're going to do both virtual meetings like this, and then we're going to do in-person events as we're allowed to by certain health dictates. And of course, always provide options besides just doing things on the computer.
Will we be able to get results of those?
Yes, and we'll share that around with everybody as well. Okay.
So some of you may be wondering, what is a general plan? If you're not familiar with the planning practice, we thought we'd give you a brief on what this process entails. So a general plan is a long-range planning document. The state of California requires that every jurisdiction, so that's every city, town, and county, have a general plan. And that's meant to guide future development and future policy making over 20 to 25 year span. And as part of this general plan, it's meant to also capture the community's vision moving forward. And that vision will also guide both Planning Commission and City Council direction. As part of a general plan, the state mandates that there are several elements that are included. And one way to think of this is to think of a set of chapters as part of this. And I'll dive into all of those in a moment. As Xenia had mentioned, the city of Solvang has not updated its general plan comprehensively since the city incorporated. It's been done in several segments, element by element. So this is the first time that we're taking a comprehensive, holistic approach and bringing everything up to 2021 and looking forward for the next 20 to 25 years.
And there's lots of moving pieces as part of a general plan, so it's very important that we do this all at once because it makes sure that all the parts are working towards the same endpoint, which is why we're doing a comprehensive update.
And a way to think of a general plan is to think of it literally, general. A general plan is broad, and the best way to describe this is actually shown in the graphic that you're seeing here. So the general plan is the foundation for your community, and everything else is tiered or built off of that. So when you typically think of zoning are specific regulations or development standards. Your zoning is tiered off or built off of your general plan and has to be consistent. And from there, subdivisions and your building permit. So the general plan is the clear foundation to have everything built off of and to help guide the city moving forward. As Rick had mentioned, the general plan is also comprehensive. So it covers several topics, and that's why we have a diverse team here that's multifaceted. Everything from land use to economics, design, mobility, and a focus on the environment and other hazards and safety that affect this area. So when we look at a general plan, we're looking at not only the city, so the city of Solvang, but also the areas that surround it that have other outstanding impacts that affect your community. So as part of this, we're going to analyze what's known as a planning area. And the planning area encompasses what's shown here on the map of your city limits and your sphere of influence. And those two boundaries combined is a planning area. So when we are evaluating traffic or evaluating hazards, we're going to look slightly beyond that because it's not just what's within your boundaries that affects your community, it's what's outside your boundaries as well. Especially since you do have a highway that runs right through your community, there's a lot of impacts from that the city has no control over. It's outside impacts. So we're going to have another polling question here, and this is to get an idea and representation of who's on our call today and where you live within the community. Different parts of the community have different issues, different opportunities. So we're going to put up a polling question here and ask which area of the city do you live in, categorized by letters A, B, C, and D. If you live in Area A, that's north of Highway 246, and that's going to be west of Creekside Place Park. If you live in Area B, that's going to be north of the San Ynez River and south of Highway 246. If you live in C, down on the southern end, that's going to be south of the San Ynez River. Or D is actually outside the city limits. That's along Highway 246 east of Creekside Place Park.
So if you can take a second and just picture in your mind where you live, And then we're going to ask you to pick a letter that represents where you're located.
And this question is important to see the diversity and where we have proper outreach within the community to make sure that everyone's voice is heard through this process, because a general plan is a community-driven process. It's not a consultant process, and we want to make sure that everybody has the ability to participate through this.
Okay, give you a couple more seconds, we'll wrap this one up. All right. So we're sharing the results now from that one. And as you can see, we've got about 46% in Area A, the part north of Highway 246. B is coming in close behind that at 35%. And then C and D are smaller locations and representations as far as total population. And we do have 4 individuals that don't live in the area. And this is not untypical for areas because we do have individuals that own property in the area, that own businesses in the area, but may not live in the community. So we want to make sure that we get all those inputs as well as going forward.
So why update the general plan? Well, I know we've mentioned this a few times. It hasn't been comprehensively updated in 33 years. So this is our chance to look at everything within the same sphere and bring everything up to date, not only to reflect best practices, but to reflect how Solvang has changed since its incorporation and also the change in state laws. This is also gives the community the ability to refine and update the vision. What does Solvang look like over the next 20 to 25 years? And then how can we make those changes or basically build upon that vision through policy direction moving forward? So it's a community-led plan.
And as we go forward, we'll find some things you don't want to have changed, some things you might think need to have changed, and those are all valid choices, but they are choices that we need to make going through this and ones that will work with the community to make sure we understand which way you'd like the plan to go.
And as part of this, it's important to, as Rick had touched on, it's important to realize that there are parts of your general plan that have been successful for the community, and those are things that we should keep. They're assets, and maybe we can build upon them. So there might not be items that need to be changed. And that's where we get the council's interpretation and expectations, the commission, and then the community. So it's a holistic approach.
Brent,
Yes.
excuse me. What does the impact of being a charter city have on the general plan?
In the same way, all communities, no matter their charter or not, they have to still go through the same state law of meeting the needs of the general plan. And so the requirements still apply. You can't charter yourself out of doing the general plan update.
Yeah, I thought I saw some laws that exempted certain parts of it. That's what I was curious about.
There are some specific sections dealing with very specific things, but in general, you still have to cover the broad range of topics covered in the general plan.
Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, this is the city attorney. I'm online. If you have any legal questions, one of the things that generally applies to a charter city is the consistency between the general plan and the zoning codes is not as stringent as it is with the general plan city. So you've got a little bit more flexibility in a charter city.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that input, Dave.
And along those lines, that's something that we'll look at when we go through this general plan is your zoning code, as we showed in that pyramid, has to be consistent with the general plan. And with the charter city, you have some little differences on that, but we'll have to talk about how your zoning code might need to be updated in the future and if there's any implications on that end of it as well. Because the zoning is one of the tools you use to implement a general plan.
And there's 2 more points I wanted to touch on the previous slide. As part of this update, there were 2 pieces that the city identified that were critical to a successful adoption, and that would be the ability to foster sustainable economic development for the community and to have this truly a participatory community engagement effort. I wanted to highlight both of those. So I'd mentioned as part of this general plan that there's a series of chapters or a series of elements, and these are required by the state. So every jurisdiction that prepares a general plan has to include these elements shown on your screen. And the state gives guidance about what needs to be included within each of these chapters, and that's part of the state's general plan guidelines. The last time that they put the Governor's Office of Planning and Research put this out was in 2017. So through this process, we compare back to that to make sure that the city is in full compliance with state law pertaining to general plan policy and programs.
And these are the main topic areas that we have to cover, but if you're going to look at the table of contents for your general plan, it doesn't have to have chapters specifically called this. Many communities combine things. For instance, conservation and open space is typically combined, and safety and noise are often combined together. So, and we'll have other ones we talked about, like economic development, which will likely stand alone. So we'll have a discussion about how to organize this as we go through the process.
And you're not limited to only those elements. So the city of Solvang has a design element. So you can add additional elements. You just have to make sure that you check all of these boxes when you go through an update. So one of the larger reasons for this update is also state requirements. If you're familiar with state law, it seems to change on a daily basis. So we want to make sure that your new plan is compliant with a whole host of new regulations and bills that have been brought forward. Shown on the screen is just a sample of what's been brought forward, including laws on environmental justice, complete streets, sustainability and GHG reductions, tribal consultation, which is pertinent to your community, housing, wildfire and flooding. So there's a whole host of topics here when we get into the discussion of vehicle miles traveled, wildfire safety, that we will touch within each of these elements.
All right, time to go back to some polling. So we're going to talk about the live-work situation in the community. And this is one of those polls that we often ask, and somebody says, well, my condition doesn't quite fall in here. So take some liberties with this as you can. But we also have a retired category in here as well now, which we've heard in other communities. We had to make sure we covered that, depending how you classify yourself. Looks, somebody had a question about all of this, if I can find him.
I have a question. While we're waiting, to what degree is the general plan regulatory versus just guidelines?
Well, so, I mean, it depends. So there is a regulatory aspect because these policies influence, the goals and policies influence implementation programs that then the city will move forward with and act. So this basically implementation programs is a larger to-do list for the city to move forward with over the duration of your general plans period. Every year the state requires that a city produce a general plan annual report. So it's a tracking and mechanism system to make sure that what you promised in your general plan, you're actually following through. So there is a regulatory component, but there's also a visionary aspect to these too. So some of these policies won't say require, but they'll have encourage. So it's an aspirational approach to where the city's going. The general plan is very different than when you think of a zoning regulation or a zoning code, which is truly regulatory in nature. It's a codified standard. There are requires and shalls. The general plan is a mix of encourage and require. I hope that answers your question. I don't know, Rick, if you want to add in on the difference there.
The key piece for many decisions that your planning commission and city council make is that they make findings that their decision is consistent with the general plan. So that's an important aspect to cross-check. Look like Brian is waving at us. If you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, Rick, Rust, would you please speak into your microphone?
Am I too far away?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Thank you for letting me know. Is that better? Excellent. Okay, well, we just finished that last poll. So most living in Solvang, obviously, we found out from the last time, we've got about a close split between those working here in the community and those that are retired here in the community. So now we're going to switch over to the next question. How long have you lived in Solvang? And for those of you that don't live in the community, you can pick the last button down at the bottom. I get to cheat and see the results as they're coming in, so that's why. Interesting. All right, a few more seconds here. We got a few more people have been normally voting that haven't yet. Okay. So interesting results overall. We have 38% that have lived here more than 20 years. So you've probably worked quite a bit of your life and have retired here now and bring a load of experience to us as far as what's worked and what hasn't, what's been tried before. Those will be great insights we'll use as we go along. But interesting, we got 24% that have lived here 0 to 3 years. So we're going to have some fresh insights on what the future may be 20 years from now. So that's quite an interesting dichotomy of the people that are here today for us. I appreciate all of you for taking time out of your Saturday. Okay, we can talk a little bit about the update process and how you can be involved as we go along here.
So the general plan update process is broken into 6 phases. So right now, you are part of the first step of this 2-year process, is known as project initiation. So we started the project with a kickoff meeting back in December of 2020, and then we're here today with a community study session. You'll notice here above the project initiation, there's a box outlined, and on the last line in that box is newsletter number 1. So as part of this process, there are a series of newsletters that are going to be distributed to the community on the general plan website, and they're also available here at City Hall as well. And these newsletters basically provide a project update on where we're at, different community engagement opportunities for you to become involved in, and it'll also highlight deliverables for your review as we work through the process. So anything that provides an update in the project is going to be included in that newsletter. So newsletter number 1 is available now, and Rick Russ will talk about the project website and where to find that if you'd like to read that online momentarily.
So yes, if you go to, we'll talk about the website in a second, but if you go to plansolvang.com, that's the project website. All the documents that are prepared and notices of meetings, et cetera, that'll all be posted on the website. In fact, you'll see a link for today's Zoom link right on the front of that website portal. But if you don't like to get things off the website, if you'd like to have a hard copy to hold in your hand and read at your leisure, there are copies of this here in the lobby of the City Hall. And most of the documents that we have will be available here to have a look at so that you don't have to download things if you don't like.
So the second phase in this project, which we're starting now and will last through the spring, is called Existing Conditions and Trends. And before we can start any analysis or look toward the future of Solvang, we need to understand where we're at now and where we've been. So the Existing Conditions and Trends section looks at a snapshot of Solvang in 2020 and 2021. And what we'll actually do is prepare a workbook that outlines existing conditions in the community in regards to parks and open space, public facilities and services. What are your current land uses? What's your current zoning regulations? What are some hazards in the community? And what are your traffic implications now? So that's our starting base. That's the foundation. That'll allow us to then prepare other portions of the general plan, eventually environmental document toward the end through adoption. So what you'll notice here is there'll be a second newsletter accompanying this next section of the project, and there will also be another community workshop that will allow the community to see the results of the existing condition so you can see where your community is at this point in time. Also through this phase is where we'll reevaluate the vision and guiding principles for Solvang going forward or the next 20 to 25 years. So that process of either modifying your vision or coming up with a new one, depending on where the community would like to take this effort, that'll be done through this next phase. So expect that community workshop number 2 to be mid to late spring. When we roll into the summer, we'll actually start the alternative choices. Now, this usually gets the public's attention. This is where we actually look at land uses in the community and see, do land uses need to change? Do we need to reevaluate what's allowed in those uses and how they're incorporated and integrated into the community? So as part of that, we'll have a community workshop number 3 that's expected for mid this summer, where we'll ask the community to provide their thoughts on what's working and what's not working. What needs to change? What do you envision in parts of the city? As part of that process, we'll also take a look at your parking and build off of the recent draft parking study, and we'll also prepare a citywide fiscal impact model to make sure that what's being proposed can actually pencil out and makes financial sense for the city moving forward. We don't want to bring something forward that is going to cause undue burden to the community.
There are a lot of other things that get talked about in the alternatives as well. It's not just about land use. So if there's items that we need to talk about relative to mobility or how we get around the community on bikes and pedestrian, perhaps, any of those things could have some major choices. And this alternatives phase is a good time for us to look at the list of how can we address that issue? What are the different things we might do to make the community better? And what are the trade-offs to be made with those? And so we'll make sure that we talk with the community about these different choices and get your feedback about each one.
So phase 4 is actually preparing the general plan itself. So this is what's known as the policy document. This includes your goals and policies within each of the elements that are going to be outlined as part of the Solvang 2040 general plan. And as part of this is where we're going to evaluate all your existing goals, policies, and programs, work with staff and the council and commission to determine which ones have worked. Have some already been completed over the last 33 years? And where are areas that we can improve or possibly add new goals and policies looking forward in the future? As part of that, there'll be another newsletter. And then we'll also have a series of planning commission and city council study sessions where we'll bring each of the elements forward and allow both bodies to review them and provide feedback before we move into an environmental impact report as part of the environmental process, which is in phase 5.
You mentioned phase 5. This is where we talk about what happens if we do this. What happens to the world? What happens to our transportation system? What happens to our availability of water? How does our water quality react to all this? So this document gives the decision makers and the public a look at what the implications are of the choices that you're being asked to make. And this gives you a chance to say, well, let's adjust that or move forward in a different kind of direction. So it's a good feedback loop, if you will, before you make your final decision on the general plan. And then finally, we get to phase 6, which is the adoption. There will be a series of official public hearings with both the Planning Commission, with the Planning Commission making a recommendation to the City Council for final adoption of the general plan. Again, we're a little under the 2-year mark for getting down to that point. So there's a lot to be accomplished in this time frame as we go forward. Now, as far as community outreach, so we mentioned there's a broad range of items. The branding is something you'll notice. See my camera here? Okay, there we go. The logo that's on the top of the website, that's on these little business cards. You can pick these up downtown if you'd like also. But these are a way to notify when we have something going on about the general plan. So whenever you see that logo, it has something to do with the general plan update. So just to bring your mind to what's going on, and you'll always see that logo on things we do. We've got a growing email list, which is quite extensive at this point, over 1,000 people. On our website, there's an easy way to join the email list. Just clicking on the little tab on the right side of the web page, you can add your email address. Your friends and neighbors, you can encourage them to go on and join as well. We won't be spamming you with miscellaneous information, but this is to let you know when there's things like today's event coming up so that we get more and more people involved in the process. Newsletters we talked about before. We'll also be working with the media about getting the word out as best we can to all the different radio or newspaper outlets that can provide some information to the community. Community workshops. We will have those in the different venues that we can going forward. We have ones coming up soon about the existing conditions. The next will be in the alternatives, probably in the summertime for that one. And then we have the update website. So as I mentioned, if you go to plansolvang.com, you'll find the website. At the top of the website is a set of menus where you can find existing documents. The homepage will always be where you'll find the latest and greatest information. For instance, the community workshop for today is listed on that home page right now with a link to this meeting. On the top right, I mentioned the orange little button there. If you click that, it'll allow you to find out more about the update. You can add your email address and it'll go from there. The green one's also a quick and easy thing too. So if you think of a comment that you'd like to pass on to the consulting team and to city staff, click that little green tag there and you can type in a quick comment and that'll go into our records and we'll keep track of that for things that we need to evaluate. So use that throughout the planning process for finding out what's new. So accordingly, we're going to ask the next question of, have you tried the project website yet? Okay, we're doing much faster now, so a couple more seconds and I'll end this one. And we're on polling question 4. I think I have 7 or 8 of these, so not too many more to. All right, last chance. Okay, so in total, we've got about 60% of you at least knew it was there, and some haven't had the chance to try it yet. 39% didn't know existed. So if we're in the if you build it, they will come kind of mode. So please tell your other people that you know about the website, because it is the best way for you to share information with us and for you to find out more about when the next events are coming or the next documents are available. So one more question for you. And we do have 7 of these, so let me launch that one. Have you joined the project email list? In addition to the project email list, we also put things into utility mailers that will go out as we go forward, and so there's other ways to get information out. We're hoping, we've got 54 individuals on our Zoom call today, and we're hoping that we can also look to you to be our ambassadors for the future. And if you could just tell one more person about the website, about this process, that will help us double our amount and we can just keep moving forward. The success of this plan, as we've kind of highlighted, really relies on us hearing from the people that live here, because this is for your future. Two people. All right, so we have a challenge out there for each of you to talk to 2 other people that you know and get them connected to this effort. I like that. All right, so we got 44% of you have, 20% of you haven't yet, but I'm sure that's on your list to do right after you get off this meeting today. So we appreciate you sharing that. As I mentioned, you just click there on that little orange thing and it'll pop out this box, and that's how you add your name to the list. All right, so today, the last true polling question, and then we're going to try another adventure. How are you viewing this meeting today? A PC or a Mac, a tablet, a phone, in person? Now, in person is a very limited audience. We have a planning commissioner in the audience, and otherwise the city council is here today. But we're all keeping our distances today, so. Okay, so we've got 74% of you about on some type of a thing with a keyboard. 20% 21% on a tablet, and only a few of you on a phone. And that could be a pro or con going forward, because we've got a couple other exercises we would like you to do that require you to go out to a different location to give us your input. We're going to see how that works. The problem with Zoom polls is I have to know the answer before I put it here because it's multiple choice only. And so we've got a different activity we would like to use with you today. We're going to see how that's going to work. And then, let's see, we're at 10:42. What we like to do is spend maybe about another 10, 15 minutes on these last three questions. And then we're going to open it up for public comment. And it's a chance for you to let us know what's important to you as far as meeting the future. Now, if somehow you get disconnected from the Zoom call, remember you can go to plansolvang.com and you can re-click the link to rejoin us again, and we'll make sure you get let in. All right, with that said, now we're going to do a different kind of polling software. And this polling software allows you to actually type in words. And we're going to ask you to give us some ideas on issues and opportunities and words that you would use to describe the community. Things that I don't really know the answer to, and so I can't put them in a multiple choice format. Now, for those of you that have a smartphone, the best way to do this would be to use your iPhone or your Android device and to go along to this next website I'm going to talk to you about. And you can answer some answers that way. If you're at home on a laptop using your browser, you'll simply open up another browser window or another tab next to where the Zoom is at and go to the address I'm going to show you. So we're going to give this a shot. If it doesn't work, don't worry. We're going to put a SurveyMonkey poll on our website, and Monday morning you'll be able to go there, and your friends can go there, more importantly, the two that the mayor wanted us to have done. And they can go through every question that we did today, plus they can go through these three questions. So if you can't get your system to work simultaneously here, don't worry. We'll give you a different survey to fill out Monday morning that you can answer them. But let's try just to give us a sense. So what we want to do is, what three words best describe Solvang today? So if you have a different tab, or if you have a separate iPhone or Android device, you go to the address Slido, I guess PowerPoint slides with an O at the end of it, so slido.com, and there's going to be a little slot at the top that's going to ask you for a code, and you enter the word Solvang. And I'm going to go over there right now to join you. As I said, if it doesn't work for you, no problem. We'll get you another venue to enter this in. But these are things that help us to get some other inputs that we just normally do in person. Normally we give you 3 index cards and ask you some of these questions, but we don't have the ability to do that today.
There it goes.
So we have some successes here. So if you enter a word and hit send, there also should be a button that allows you to add more than one word. So what's happening now is, as all of you add words, the ones that are said the most often get bigger. If you've seen it, this is called a word cloud. So the most important things get brought forward. And you can see some of the things in here, you start to see some different ideas. Some are a little on the negative side, some are more of the positive side, but they're all important things to understand. We're going to give you a couple minutes to go through this because obviously you're starting to type some things in, and that takes a little bit of time. Now, there's a filter in here for those words that your mother wouldn't want you to say, but please be respectful. Don't use any personal names or any personal attacks if you can avoid that. And you get some interesting new thoughts. There was one on here about food deserts. That's a new concept in having healthy communities and having access to grocery stores or having access to locally grown foods and farm to fork kind of movements. Those are all things that are common in current general plan updates as far as conversations. We've got 3 questions we're going to ask you. Then again, we're going to go into the public comment. I see several have your hands raised, so just remember that we'll catch you all in a little bit. So you can put your hands down for right now, unless there's a problem doing this exercise, then maybe you can keep your hand up and we'll try to recognize you if you have issues doing this exercise. We have some new people joining, it looks like. All right, 1 more minute on this, and then we're going to move off. So we had a little over 50 people online. It looks like 37 people were able to engage in this. Again, if you're not able to do it today, just sit with us for a few more minutes. There will be an exercise on the website where you'll be able to go through and do this all in one place without having to deal with the Zoom window on one side and the Slido window on another. Okay. So Charming started out being the big #1 winner. It still is the #1 winner, but with a lot of different ideas coming forward, it started getting a little smaller as far as the overall percentage, but it still is the ending top choice, along with beautiful, friendly, and quaint, and probably touristy was not meant to be. That could be positive or negative, depending if you're in a touristy business, I suppose, or if you
Yeah.
Okay, the next 2 questions is we're going to ask you for, on the next one, I'll ask you for 3 opportunities. That is positive things that you think the city can take advantage of. What are some great aspects of the community that you think aren't being taken enough advantage of but could be? And then after that, we're going to do a favorite about what are the key issues that we need to address. Now, I ask for the advantages up front because when we have public workshops and we ask people to fill out cards on what needs to be fixed, usually people can come up with the issues, but they have more trouble coming up with the advantages. And there are advantages in every community, and we'll ask you about those first. So now we're asking you to list 3 opportunities that you feel the city should take advantage of. Now, when you enter one word and click the send, it'll come up with the choice to enter another. Somebody said they didn't understand the question, and that is, if you think it's advantage to have the open spaces around the community, and somebody talked about agritourism earlier. So how do you take advantage of agritourism? So that could be an opportunity because of the surrounding agricultural areas, because of the viticulture that's going on in some areas, just the open space of it. How might we take more advantage of that to enhance economic development in the community? So if you feel that, that could be an opportunity that you'd like to have addressed. We need to take better advantage of the economic activities associated with agritourism. Maybe in a shorter sentence than I just gave, but but that's the idea. Is how do we build on that? Give you another 60 seconds here to enter some words. Then we're going to move on to our final question, and then we're going to turn the mic over to all of you for the rest of the event and the council. And during your comments, you can let us know if you thought this exercise worked well. We're probably going to be continuing with a Zoom format in the future. You are the trendsetters in the first location that's used this new software, which is much more integrated into things like PowerPoint and activities. They are supposed to be more integrated into Zoom shortly. But we think it's a good way to ask open-ended questions, because normally we're stuck with yes, no, true, false, multiple choice. Okay. Y'all did fantastic. We got 39 different individuals inputting information. So we're going to go to one last one here, and we're going to talk about what are 3 challenges that you feel need to be addressed. Maybe you think there's too much traffic somewhere. If you can, give us some hint where that might be. Don't just say traffic's bad. Traffic's bad on the highway. Or we need to have another park in this area of town, or whatever you think might be an issue that we need to address. So again, take a few minutes, just like the last one, which you all did great at. Brent's looking at his email, as we have several people that must be on this call that are signing up to be on the email list, so awesome.
And we sometimes do get the question, if I submit a comment, does it really go to you? And I will say, yes, it does. On some projects, if someone submits a comment at 2 in the morning, I see that comment at 2 in the morning. So it does come to our email, and we do see those, and we do catalog them. So all your comments are noted, so just so you're aware.
Now, the comment box is limited to 1,000 characters. It'll give you a countdown. I suppose if you really are on a hot streak in the middle of the night, just send us several different comments and you'll be able to fill it up.
Are you going to make those available? the comments?
Sure.
Yeah, the comments are public record.
All right, we're still getting more inputs. We're going to let this keep going a little bit.
And actually, to build upon the question from council member, the comments that come out of the meeting tonight and any of the additional surveys afterwards, those are all going to be put into a summary at the end of this process. Well, not the end of this entire general plan, but the end of this first step. And we're going to post a community workshop summary. Every comment that's collected is going to be stated verbatim. There's no summary of the comments, so everyone can read them. That'll be posted on the general plan website, so the community can go back and look at everything that was said moving forward. That process will be repeated for every community workshop that we do.
These are all anonymous, I presume?
Yes. Thank you. I was just going to note that. We don't publish your names along with your comments, so what we're really looking for is truthful input at this point. Okay. It seems like it's slowing down. Give a few more seconds. Have last thoughts in there. Oh, we just got several more. Okay, 30-second call. And as I said, we have the comment box on the website if you'd like to continue sending in your ideas. We'll also have the survey online starting Monday where you'll have the chance to add to this even more, and your friends and neighbors obviously can add to this even more. So don't worry, this isn't the end of your opportunities to have something to say. Okay. All right. So, for better or for worse, that's the end of the things we're going to ask you on the polls, so you can rest your fingers. We're not going to bug you anymore about that. But this is the chance for the community to have some input. For today's meeting, and we're scheduled to go for another hour, when we get to the public comment, if you can stick with your 3-minute statement, that'd be great. Just to allow everybody to have a chance to talk, and if there's more time after that, we can revisit a few of you then. We're going to talk to get some comments from the city council members first. What we're looking for is we're new to the community. We're looking to help you with the plan. We're your technical experts, but we would like to have your advice and input about what you would like to see in the future. What is up for the future of Solvang? Where do you see the community going? What would you like to tell us that we need to know going forward? So with that, we'll turn it back to the mayor and the council members for your inputs.
I've got a question.
We'll go ahead and start with council comments. Councilmember Thomas?
How and when is a sphere of influence determined?
Not sure when your current sphere was adopted, but if you wanted to look at expansion of it, that could be considered as part of this process if there was a reason for that. But it typically shows an area of which you provide services or an area of which you have future desires to expand into in one way or the other. But it's often used to show areas that have infrastructure provisions.
Is that something that can be done within a city, or does that require additional approvals or
Requires
organizational
additional
bodies that have impact on that?
Yes, it would go through the county's local agency formation commission, or short is LAFCO.
Yeah.
And they are involved in looking at all spheres of influence for all the communities in Santa Barbara County. So you would go through that process if there's any consideration for expansions.
Okay.
Just our latest sphere of influence was adopted in 2018.
Okay.
2018.
2018?
18.
Thank you.
And I don't believe that was ever completed with an economic study. We did have a consultant come in here and do a sphere of influence study. It was not very well accepted, and they stopped it. So that was an issue. Sorry.
No worries. Are there any questions up here or comments going forward?
Yeah, just a comment. First of all, thank you to everybody that is participating at home. Your input is invaluable. Lots of great ideas, great comments. So my question has to do with economic development. As you can see, there is a clear, constant struggle between the kind of town that will attract visitors and revenue and making it a hub for businesses versus the kind of town that our locals want to live in. There's concerns about traffic, maybe attracting crime, things like that. So I think the real challenge here is making that work in a harmonious way, that it works for both our economic growth and our lifestyle. And I'm just interested to see how you control the kind of businesses that come into town, because I believe that anybody that wants to open a shop and give a shot to a concept should be able to do it. But at the same time, I just have a hard time seeing how you design a theme of the town. I think it's the other way around. The theme develops as things happen, not we're going to come up with a theme and everybody needs to, to comply with that. I'm not sure if I'm being clear.
Well, where you want to go with that, there's one aspect of the design element that we'll look at what you're leaning towards at the end about what things look like and where they can be done and what you might be able to do. So as we go forward in the development of that element, that would be part of that decision about how directive you want to be on that type of guidance. We don't have the answer for you today because we're right at the beginning, so
Right.
we're looking for your inputs on that.
Okay.
As far as you started out with the economic side of it, we do have a fiscal financial firm on the team, so they will be looking at some of the trade-offs for this. And the first part of this existing conditions workbook will be giving you the financial statement for the community. What do you get right now? Where is the employment base in the community? How much really does come from tourism? What comes from other areas like agriculture? So it'll give you that good picture about where you are today. It'll also have information about trends affecting the area. Where is the area going as far as overall economic growth? So you'll have that for part of your background. And then the second part, the community design piece, we're gonna have to have a good talk with the community and with the council about the direction you'd like to go with that element and how far you want to go down that road.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Couple of comments I'd like to make. Sorry, Mayor.
No, go ahead.
First, I was a little surprised at some of the comments that came across in the type it in your biggest problems. Tourists over residents was the comment that bothered me the most. I didn't think anybody really felt that way. And I'm a little surprised. I was caught off guard with that one. And we'll have to do something to fix that. I didn't like the comment tacky either. I'd like to know what that meant. What's tacky? What do you think should be done to fix that? These things that came up were surprising to me, and I'm one of 5 of us that's supposed to help make sure that it doesn't feel that way in the city. The comment that Councilmember Arona said about the business, I would like to know. One of the things that we struggle with, we're highly dependent upon tourism for our budgets here, and that keeps us from having to raise taxes on the residents to maintain the city businesses. What other kinds of businesses and locations for those businesses can we put into the city? How do you expand the economic base of the city? We are pretty much constrained. We don't have a lot of open space left, almost none actually. So what do we do? What do we build? How do we attract? That's something that I would very much like to see addressed. That's good for now. Thank you.
Any more comments?
Yeah, I'm in fact particularly interested in reviewing the design aspect. There's been a lot of thought given to what the appeal of the town is, what people come to see, and developing guidelines so that the town keeps that charm. But at the same time, there's a lot of talk on the part of business owners that find that it's challenging to comply with those guidelines and make their business and attract business. And I think while at the time, for example, neon lights and certain styles of lighting, they were a hard no, I think there's a way that we can bring them back where they're enhancing to what we have. It doesn't necessarily have to compete with the aesthetic, but you can use these new, often technologies. Neon lights look very different today than they did, in 1986, that can help revitalize the town. So I'm very interested in getting feedback from people that are already, they have a business in town, or, they have experience of what works and it doesn't. Because that's something that definitely needs to happen. So,
And as part of this update, we'll also, besides the community workshops, we'll also be doing some individual group interviews. And so we'll talk with like the Rotary Club and the Chamber of Commerce's and other organizations in the community, and other leaders in the community to get different feedback on specific topics that they have some expertise in. So we'll try to root out what are some of the word on the street and find out what people are talking about. What are limits on the businesses? What are concerns that the business population has? And I was talking earlier, somebody mentioned the food desert and stuff. How do you get grocery type services in community? How do you get other employment types within the community besides just the tourism oriented one? And we'll try to look towards that. Even information like from our transportation individuals talking about what's your normal commute? Where your people that work in town, where are they working? And could they work here? Which is always a popular topic, is how do we let some people work locally? So we'll be addressing all those kind of things as we move forward.
okay. Have you worked with other cities that are similar, that are highly dependent on tourism and limited on what they can do? Can you name a couple that you have worked with?
We did some of the element updates for San Luis Obispo
Okay.
several years ago, and this topic you're talking about was part of the conversation about what does their downtown look like. They were having the interest about national chains and how they came into the community and what they look like in the community, and trying to get more localized businesses in town and how they interfaced with their Creekside area and take advantage of that. They have the additional piece of having a student population in addition to a tourist population. So they had several things, and then the residents wanted to have a different experience as well. So we had those kind of changes back and forth about how to address everybody's needs. So that was one of them. We've done several plans also in the wine country.
Yeah, I think another one that's similar would be the city of South Lake Tahoe,
Okay.
which is similar to Solvang, relies on tourism all 12 months of the year, and they have design issues as well. So in South Lake Tahoe, what is considered mountain architecture? What is mountain architecture? How do you interpret that? We just went through a robust process of defining what mountain architecture is, how it can be applied in neighborhoods, and how that improves the aesthetic of the city. And so I think the community design element that Solvang has now is probably still in its original form. It hasn't been touched. So I think it's been outlined by the community. That's really important. The city has made it clear that it's important to update that, to bring it up to best practices. And so I think when we get to that topic, Rick had discussed, we can also have additional, engagement efforts or survey efforts to make sure that we take a holistic approach to what design is, because design in 85 is not design in 21.
That was going to be one of my comments, because our community design element was updated last in 1988. It's the longest one from the very time that we first actually were required to do the general element. And, while we are charming, and that was one of the ideas that, that I had put down as one of my, when I think about Solvang, charming is the number one. But is that only going to be charming for the traditional Eastern European style, or is there an aspect of bringing in some of the modern Danish stuff as well that might be able to coexist, kind of like the Copenhagen house is now, as far as a design element into Solvang downtown area, maybe not necessarily in the TRC, but around that area. Because Denmark is really, their vision and their architecture is really well thought out. It's very visionary, and I'd kind of like to see that be a part of what we have here in Solvang now, not just limited ourselves to the older, and I love that. That's historically for me in the construction industry prior I loved this style, but I've also grown now to appreciate the more modern aspect of some of the buildings that are out there. And I never thought I would, and it's something that, in my lifetime now, I've kind of learned to accept some of those things a little bit more and grown to appreciate them. So with that being our oldest one, 1988, I think we really, really need our community's involvement in understanding what we should be doing going forward for the next 20 to 25 years. This may be the last one that any of us in our lifetime ever get to be a part of, realistically. So the other thing is that for all of you that are out there on the Zoom, I would encourage you, if you have kids or grandkids, because one of the other comments is, how can we make this family friendly? So to only have the retirement aspect and their viewpoint and vision, that's huge, because it's 35 to 40% probably of our overall population here. But we also have a large family element too that we would like to encourage, to bring those families in here and to have that be part of maybe our recreation element as well. Try to provide that for our families, more spaces. We should be developing our little small park that's down there on Hallisall and Juniper. We own that, and it's just sitting there with weeds. And there should be something down in that area for all those residents down in the Glen. That's a large family-oriented area down there in the Glen that we need to, that have children and need places to go without having to cross Mission Drive and go to Solvang School, or HCA Park, where we have the skate park. But another thought is, what kind of activities can we put in HCA Park that might benefit the residents, especially the younger residents or the family-oriented? We have a skate park in there. I'm going to throw it out there, just, something totally off the wall, but what about some zip lining right down along the hillside? It doesn't take much, but it's a kind of a cool activity. It does. It may, but you know what? It's something that would draw people here possibly that have families, that you could do something like that. And that's just one thought, but just something totally outside the box.
Well, you know what, Charlie, on that comment, from somebody that has scouted different areas to throw a fairy festival in, one of the challenges that we came across is that we have all of these great areas that can be used for something. And then when you go in there to ask for a permit, they'll say things like, oh, you can't have amplified music, or you can't close this, you can't access that, you can't do these things that allow you to do these events. So I understand that there might be reasons why you're not allowed to do some things. There's not enough parking to put people somewhere to host an event. There's people that live around that area that might not like the noise. So I understand that, but I definitely think that we need to revisit what we allow or not allow in these spaces and whether we can use them in a different way. So I'm 100% for that, because we have a lot of great areas and we might not be able to use them because we put certain guidelines.
Yeah.
And just one more thing, and I don't know if this is something that we can address with the general plan or not, but being that we are a town that is split by the Highway 246, there's a lot of burden that has been put on the city of Solvang in terms of managing through traffic. So it'd be great if we can see if we can collaborate with other agencies so that we are not we don't have to exhaust our limited resources to deal with all that traffic, but also see how else we can partner so that we can share some of the load. Because I do think that that's a problem. Or we are maintaining everything that entails with a big highway, and yet, we're not the ones that put it there.
Right.
Yeah, we'll definitely work with both Caltrans and Santa Barbara County Transportation relative to the highway and what can be done with some of that. And we've worked with those, at least Caltrans and other jurisdictions, to try to look at how to do pedestrian enhancements, other corrections to the highway to help make it a better, safer facility.
As far as the land use and the housing element, I know we are right in the middle of approving the new RENA, or the residential housing needs assessment, and that's being distributed to all of the cities, I think, in the next few months, with the requirements the state is telling us as a city what we will be providing or what we should be providing now and it going down the future. So I'm sure that will be part of the housing element and the land use as well, that conclusion in the studies.
And from what we've seen in other places around the state and would expect it to continue is the numbers have gone up notably from your last round. I mean, a 2-time multiplier would not be atypical.
Right. I think looking at it, they readjusted it down just a little bit based in the last couple of weeks, so.
That's good.
I think, but where do we build? Where do we build at? Because, we don't have that many vacant lots now that are actually out there.
Right, and that, it's a common problem in the general plan, and especially the state is starting to come at you from different angles, which aren't always consistent with each other in their line of thought. It's kind of like you're squeezing your tube of toothpaste. It comes out somewhere, and you've got to figure out how to get that right balance. And finding the right space to build housing is really difficult for communities that are more or less built out. And we're doing that with several cities we're working for right now, is how do they find somewhere to put and satisfy the state's needs?
On a personal note, I'm looking very much forward to this. I think it's really exciting to be a part of it. And my focus is going to be we do need to do a lot of things, and obviously we're going to be looking at everything. My focus is going to be how we pay for it.
That's why we have the economics firm involved too. So we'll have some fiscal implications of all this, because it's, my favorite thing to say is we can give you 300 things to do, but if you can only afford to do 100 of them, let's figure out together what the best 100 are. Maybe 110 will have you stretch.
Maybe we can make it. Maybe we can make it 150 if we do it right.
150. We'll stretch you a little bit, but
Okay.
there has to be some realism to the plan, and that's what we like to make sure that we give you as part of this project. It's a realistic future, but still holding some vision for where you're going.
I guess just lastly, I'd like to thank all of the residents, business owners, and folks that have joined us on Zoom and in person. Joni. And we really value all of you and your input, and you deserve to be heard. And I want to just assure you that this council up here will do everything we can to hear what you have to say and then take that into consideration as decisions go forth. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to be a part of this process.
If we could, for this morning, we'd like to have the chance for the public to have a few words. And
Yes.
as mentioned before, you put your hand up, raise your hand feature within Zoom, and you'll be called upon by the city. And then if you can go with the 3-minute discussion, that'd be great, just so we can make sure we can hear from everybody. And again, as I said, if there's some extra time, we can revisit that as we go forward. But with that, who's first on our?
We have J.L. Duncan. Please unmute yourself. J.L. Duncan.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Lansing Duncan. Sorry for my poor visual quality. I really appreciate the presentation this morning, and I'm very glad that the city is moving forward with this. It's a difficult time to be doing it because economically and obviously health-wise, things are in such transition. And I would hope the process is spread out over a long enough period of time that it will allow for more in-person participation later on. One thing I would note is that part of Solvang's vision of the future should be the preservation of its past, especially those things that make the community unique, such as Solvang's historic structures. Some of these structures are falling into disrepair. Others have been demolished or have been proposed for demolition, such as the Veterans Memorial Building. I can't help but notice that you have a symbol that you're using, a windmill, to call out Solvang's uniqueness, but the actual first windmill that was built in the city and was the model for that windmill is falling into disrepair right now. You don't have any landmark ordinance. You don't have an actual mechanism to preserve these structures and make the public aware of them. They certainly would be attractions both for tourists and residents. If I look in the conservation element where you have your list of historic structures, the Vets Hall wasn't even on this, even though right now that building has been nominated for a national listing, a National Register listing. So I would encourage the city to be looking for mechanisms to actually effectuate those policies that you have. Also, it certainly would be nice if the lumberyard property were part of this consideration. This is a major property along Mission Drive at the very entry to the city. And what is happening there will definitely affect the city in a very strong way, how visitors, residents, anybody driving through the city perceives it. In terms of the sustainability issues, obviously water is of great concern to us. Traffic, and one of the elements of that traffic that I think impacts Mission Drive and the residents so much is noise. We should be looking at the noise level in Solvang. People come here because they like the idea that it's in the quiet country, but sometimes it doesn't seem like that with all the noise we're hearing. The other things that make it so charming are its trees and the fact that you can walk. The fact that it should be pedestrian friendly is so important for this community, both for the residents and the tourists. So I would hope all those things are kept in mind as you move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have, what I see on the screen is Dennis. Please unmute yourself.
Hi, Dennis Beebe. I also share Lansing's and Councilman Thomas's anticipation of a great process. But given this meeting format, I think it's excellent to get people's inputs. But I'd like to be able to give an input by text during the presentation. And at least in this particular Zoom format, I didn't see a way to chat. Maybe it's me. And if I need education, just name the person and they can show me how to be, how I can employ chat. But I honestly couldn't find it anywhere. And during the presentation, I think it'd be useful to take inputs other than verbal. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments.
All right. Next up, we have Daryl Sheck.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. My name is Daryl Sheck, resident of Solvang with my family for the last 22 years. I think to move forward with a new general plan, we also need to look at the history of what has worked in terms of providing successes for the city of Solvang and what has not. We need to, at the very least, pay tribute to the history of the city and preferably preserve it, but also embrace the future. In particular, I'm primarily concerned about the sustainability of the community. When I say sustainability, I mean it from an all-encompassing viewpoint, just as building a general plan should be. That means economically, sustainable housing, sustainable environment, sustainable with an eye towards limited growth that also allows the community to be even more sustainable in the future, like a series of building blocks with milestones on when it might be appropriate to move to another level. This currently is a very tourist-centric town. It's worked in the past. However, given the pandemic and the hand that we've been dealt for the past year, this should cause us to pause and rethink that strategy. From an economic perspective, Buellton is far more successful in terms of per capita revenues than Solvang. This is for a variety of reasons, although at this point I can firmly say that this city currently wins the beauty contest. But this city is like a beauty contest winner without the funds to enter into the next tier pageant. Typically, the most successful communities have economies that are diversified so much that they can weather downturns in any one particular sector or industry, and diversified from the standpoint of revenue sources that we're not reliant primarily on one of transient occupancy tax or sales tax or property tax. This doesn't mean abandoning tourism or not expanding tourism. A new hotel or two in the short term would probably be great, but better building other industries other than tourism and consideration of expansion on the fringes. And I would also like to see the Santa Ynez Riverfront inevitably used as a true recreational resource and not just a place to walk the dog down to occasionally. This diversification theme should also reflect the housing that is built and the diversity of the community from a transportation perspective, inclusive of safe roads, bike paths, trails, which also bleeds into diversity of recreation opportunities and overall quality of life. I hope the plan as a whole reflects this diversity, because diversity will provide us the opportunity that will be our strength in the future. Much like one, we would not usually want to concentrate all of our money in one investment. It's important we look at the city as a portfolio of various opportunities. Diversification provides stability. And I look forward to providing my input throughout this process, as should every resident of the city. And I'm thankful for this initial transparency of the process and hope it continues unabated, so everyone can at least say, I gave my input and was part of the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Ian Jacobson.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
My thought has to do with the walking ability of the city. I'd like to commend the city for the work that's just been done to extend sidewalks, but there is a need for a sidewalk at least on one side of each street in the area of Old Town, especially in areas like Alisal Road between Maple and Laurel, and on Laurel between Alisal and Eucalyptus, where there's some really dangerous narrow areas, and I've counted roughly 50 people a day walking those streets, and so there's a fair amount of foot traffic. I think that this is a real safety issue, especially since you have bus stops for picking up the students and letting them off in the afternoon, and also just the kids coming from Solvang School. So I would say focusing on developing a pattern of sidewalks so that it makes the town a more walkable place. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Anissa Ballinger.
Hi. I want to thank you for the warm invitation to provide comments. I really appreciate that as a community member. My name is Anissa Ballinger. I am a community member. I'm also a director on the board of the Friends of the Library. On behalf of the Friends, I would really like to ask you to consider the need for a new Solvang library facility in your general plan. Our current facility is unchanged since 1964, when it moved into its current place, despite vast changes in the when it moved to that space, it had a collection of about 8,800 books, and now it houses 15,000 items, which is still only about 1/5 of what our peers' libraries provide. And commissioned reports have been done in the past, I think it was back in 2003, that recognized that our library, to serve its current population and provide the services it should really be a minimum of 7,000 to 15,000 square feet. Ours is approximately 2,000. So I heard a lot of people speaking about the need to address community members' needs, both seniors and children. And I think that the library is a perfect way to do that. It's a place that families go with their kids. I go there with my kids, as well as seniors and middle-aged adults. Everybody uses a library. With improvements, our library could be a true community hub. It can be a place for meetings. It can be a place that supports education and learning for our young people and our old people, for everybody. They can increase access to technology. They can have separate meeting space for groups to meet. They can have a dedicated after-school homework program. They can hold film screenings and lectures, essentially provide the basics of a modern library. I think our community is so beautiful, and I am grateful for it. And I just think that our community deserves a library commensurate to its population in order to serve its needs. Thank you.
Next up, we have Deborah Dayant.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
First of all, I want to thank everyone for having this great meeting. I think it's fabulous, and welcome again to our new council and mayor and city attorney. I love Zoom. I think it's been fantastic. I do want to agree with Dennis. I too was unable to use that third-party app to enter comments. So just a little feedback on that. I agree wholeheartedly with Duncan Lansing on the emphasis on conservation and the balance between residential and tourists, I think is very important for our area. Mark is an example, because I think you were kind of surprised by a couple of the comments. I'm just going to give a personal example, and this is something I think that's easily fixed, but it is apparent to a lot of us in neighborhoods, are the mokes. So we get the mokes cruising into our neighborhood, doing U-turns and coming up to dead ends and not knowing where to go. So that's just kind of like a small example, and I think that would be easily rectified by talking to possibly the moke business owners and giving the maps on where they shouldn't go. But in general, that's. Oh, and one other thing I wanted to mention, we unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we have so many empty businesses now, and it's so sad. But the signage, for instance, at the old antique center, there's this huge sign that says "Business for Lease." It's not a great look, and it makes our town look, empty and sad, and other adjectives I could use. I don't know if there's anything that can be done about that, about having that less visible. But just a comment on that. And I want to just thank everyone again. I think it's just a wonderful start and appreciate it.
Next up, we have Ellen Albertoni.
I'm just amazed that there was a question.
Good morning. Thank you very much. And thank you, city council members and our friends and family of our community. This is a great start and experience. I just would like to remind you when you're planning for the future of the city, don't forget one of the fastest growing populations in our city and in our community, in our valley, is our seniors. And we've been working on the planning a new brick and mortar senior center. We've been here since 1983 next to our friends at the library, going through some of those same aches and pains they are. And we're looking forward to building a new building to doubling the size and accommodating not just our seniors, but our community, inviting intergenerational experiences. And we hope that you really will take a look at us as you make the plans for our city, not just businesses, but the important backbone of the city, which is our seniors and all of our members. And also thank you for the support for our seniors throughout the several years.
Oh.
Thank you. Next up, we have Stephen Brown.
Awesome.
Thank you for making this possible. This has been a great meeting. I like the new technology. I like being able to answer a few questions and have the results appear. I found it very interesting, the balance between relatively new residents like myself and people who have been here much longer. I truly agree entirely with what Darrell Scheck had to say about the economic roots of this community, where it's been and where it's going, and the real need to be more diverse. I am willing to pay more taxes if that's what it means. And I think we all should be willing to understand that the community we want is the community we need to pay for. I want to see the library expanded. I want to see the senior center rebuilt. I want this town to be a place where I have more to do. I noticed that in the chart of all the different opportunities and challenges and things we like, that one of the things was tourism. That is both part of the DNA of this town, and also one of the things most people have negative comments about. So I hope that we can move towards more diverse economics, and we can be a place that the residents enjoy even more than we already do. The medical care here is great. I believe the food here is great. I believe that some of the activities are just, they're not enough. So that's my input for now. Thank you very much for doing this.
Thank you. Next, we have Bonnie Jacobson.
There, I unmuted myself. My name is Bonnie Jacobson. I live up on Alisal Road. I also represent the Solvang Library. I'm president of the Friends of the Library. Even in a closed state, the library is very busy with virtual programs and a walk-up counter. But in an open state, we were bursting at our seams, and our building is the same size, I think, as we have mentioned before, since 1964. We're happy that the city is thinking about thinking ahead with a 20-year general plan. And within that 20 years, we would like to see the city making a larger library a possibility for our community. Either expanding the one we have or a new one. This is a project the city should do. It's beyond the scope of the Friends of the Library to make that possible, but certainly the city should be proud to have a good library that is serving the whole community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Sam Cohen.
Good afternoon. Hi, my name's Sam Cohen. I'm the Government Affairs and Legal Officer for the San Ynez Band of Chumash Indians. I assume you can hear me, or you'd be waving at me or doing some other things. I think it's pretty apparent that the city of Solvang and the San Ynez Band of Chumash Indians share a very long history here in the Valley. Since I'm one of the tribe's lawyers, I'll point out just a few statutes under state law where tribes participate in general plan updates. It starts with SB 18. If it's a general plan update, the tribe should be notified. If it's under CEQA, the tribe participates in the environmental review. There's a new Bill AB 52 that allows the tribe to identify sacred sites within the project area. And Governor Newsom has perpetuated and continued Governor Brown's Executive Order B-10-11, requiring all state agencies to consult with tribal governments. As a result, the tribe is excited to participate in your process two different ways. The tribe will participate as a member of the community of Solvang. I myself live in Solvang as well. And the tribe will also participate on a government-to-government basis under these ordinances and as part of our mutual beneficial relationship with the city of Solvang as well. So I would like to respectfully invite the city council and whatever staff you desire to meet with the tribal chairman, Kenneth Kahn, and the tribal business council at your earliest convenience so that we can assist you in any way we can with your master planning and general plan process. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Cohan, for that invitation. Sure, we'll be taking you up on that. As a note, though, just I've already had a meeting with Chairman Kahn, Supervisor Hartman, and Mayor Holly Sierra. Just last Monday, we try to do that monthly. So, just information and transparency for everyone out there.
Thank you. That's all the public comment I see for those who have raised their hand. Would anybody else like to make a comment? Please raise your hand, or if you don't know how to do that, just unmute yourself and speak. Okay, I'm not seeing any.
Dania,
Here you go.
I've been raising my hand. This is Sheila Benedict.
Go ahead.
I echo Daryl and Stephen and Sam Cohen. But I just want to mention one thing. There is a lot at the corner of Alcell and 246 that some years ago, there was a proposal to put a small building on there, and it was shot down by Caltrans, rightfully so, because of traffic circulation. And so it was never built on. There's trees and everything. And that is history, I know, but since then traffic has become terrible on 246. And this is my big concern and the concern of an awful lot of my neighbors, that will not be taken into consideration, because from about 3 o'clock on, it could be stop and go all along 246. And I hope that the general plan will consider that when they're allowing a lot of development along 246 that will just add to the woes that we have right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak?
I have my hand up. I'm Shirley Stacy. I'm the city rep for the County Library Advisory Committee, and I support the comments that have been made by both members of the Friends of the Library. And I think the library is a very important part of the community, both for young and old. I'd also like to mention the theater, which no one has mentioned. And I think the theater also provides things for young and old alike, and deserves city support and deserves to be part of the general plan as well. So those are the two things that I just hadn't heard about. And
Mr. Duncan, could you mute yourself? You're talking over the top.
If you're not the speaker, please mute yourself and remain muted until you're called upon. And I also see some people raising their hand physically. We can only see your virtual hand. So please raise your hand on the Zoom app. I do see Cora Blanchard is waving for the next speaker, so I'll keep on asking for more people that want to speak, but please go ahead. Finished your comment? Looks like we had the previous speaker freeze. So we'll go ahead at this point to go to Cora Blanchard.
Hi, thank you. I'm actually on my daughter's. I'm Heather Blanchard. Sorry, I couldn't see my virtual hand.
Mr. Duncan, please mute yourself. Please go ahead.
So earlier, one of the council members was a little bit taken aback by the tourists over residents comment. I apologize, that wasn't my intent. However, I did make that comment, and I'd like to explain why. I have been a resident in Solvang for just about 11 years. My husband and children and I have lived in the downtown corridor on 2nd Street for 2.5 years. My comments specifically go to December of 2019. I acknowledge that the current city council and mayor had nothing to do with what happened for Jewel Fest in 2019, but IDK took over and ruined 8 weeks of our lives of living on 2nd Street. We could not park on our street for 8 solid weeks. Every single weekend, we had to go out and ask people to not block our mailbox so mail could be delivered. There were a few occasions we even had to stop tourists from parking in our driveway. We spent 8 weeks cleaning up trash off of our sidewalk, off of our driveway, in our front lawn. We had Cinderella carriages racing up and down our street. We had, I'll use the word that was posted earlier, a tacky laser light show. It was, in my opinion, horrible. And so that's what my tourism over residents comments was referring to, because in 2019 Yule Fest, definitely tourism took over priority of the residents that live here, in my opinion. So I'd just like to see in the future going forth a better balance. I understand we're driven by tourism. I agree with previous comments from others that have said we should try to look to expand our tax base and not rely solely on tourism, as the pandemic has shown us that, you know, diversification is a plus. So thank you for this process. It's been really informative. I love the Zoom format. I had my video off earlier because I managed to fold 3 loads of laundry while listening to everyone's important comments. And I corrected my batch of spelling tests. So it's a win-win. So thank you all for your input. I appreciate it.
Way to diversify there.
Yeah.
Heather.
Thank you for that explanation, by the way. I appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to make a comment? Once again, the hand that you should be raising is your virtual hand, if at all possible, on Zoom. If you can't see that button, at this point, I don't have anybody with a raised hand on Zoom, but if you just weren't able to figure out how to do that, please just go ahead and unmute yourself. I'll give it a few more seconds here to see if anybody wants to speak. Anybody else would like to make a comment? Please unmute yourself. Now we have David Goldstein has just raised hand. Please
Yes, my name is David Goldstein. I was an architect. I had an office in Solvang for 40 years. I've recently retired, but you'll hear more from me about this than just this comment. But there's a barn sitting in Solvang Park next to the gazebo. And I've written several times to the Design Review Committee or BAR, whatever they're called now, and I've written to the city, and the only comments I get are, well, we didn't allow it to be there. But, and it doesn't matter who allowed it to be there, but the comment is, there's a barn sitting in the park in town.
Mr. Goldstein?
Hello?
I think that's already being scheduled to be removed.
Oh, all right. Well, sorry I showed up. But, all right, another comment that I'll get back to you in an email regarding the library, which I think is something that a city with the character and the history and the class that Solvang has deserves a great library. It's not just a place for books, it's a place for meeting, it's a place for community gatherings and a lot of things that the city really needs to embrace and get behind and somehow figure out what to do to expand it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goldstein.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to make public comment?
If Shirley Stacy can come back on to finish her comments, if she's out there and can hear me.
Shirley Stacy? Doesn't seem that she's with us.
Okay, just wanted to make sure she had the opportunity.
Would anybody else like to make a public comment at this point? Please raise your hand or unmute yourself. Seems that that was all the public comment, Mayor.
All right. Do we have any more council comments based on what we just heard?
Yes, you can talk about it. This is a free discussion for you. You're not taking any actions today, but you can make comments and have further discussion.
Yeah, sorry, I was asking technically if we could actually discuss this. I had my microphone off. There were several comments made, and I've made notes on a lot of these, that things that need to be looked at one way or the other. As part of the general plan, and we have to try and come back to what our subject is here, I think you gentlemen have a lot of great areas to be looking into. I don't know about local activities. I don't know if that kind of thing falls into it. I mean, we're missing the local activities because it's COVID. I mean, I'm used to sitting in the park on Wednesdays and listening to music and having a glass of wine with friends. There's all these kinds of things that, the bocce team, that all that stuff that isn't happening right now because of COVID. I don't think that affects the general plan. And I will ask you, gentlemen, does recreation become a part of the general plan?
Yes, recreation is evaluated as part of the general plan.
In what section?
Typically, there would, most communities they combine their conservation and open space, and they'll add a recreation aspect or section to it. Other communities have a parks, recreation facilities element on its own.
Okay.
So yes, recreation, citywide sponsored activities. There can be goals and policies to study future activities or expand on recreational facilities. Most communities also have a library section in their general plan that states outward goals for what they would like the library to be over the 20 years, whether there's technological advances, expansions, or other social services that the library can offer to community members.
Another question then, if I may. One of the things was brought up, I wrote it down as neighborhood roles or rules, something about the Mokes being driving around this. There, it's an interesting thing, but how do we put in the circulation plan limitations on different types of vehicles? Is that a noise? How do you do something like that? How is it addressed in the general plan?
Well, people going the wrong way is something we can't really legislate out of being, but looking at what we might need to do about better signage, better guidance, better directions. Some places even might paint lines on certain areas to kind of tell people this is not the path to take, or paint lines on the street to show them a path to take through the community. So there's some infographics that might be done to better direct the public around the community and stay out of certain neighborhoods. But the general plan, does take broader in a lot of ways. Even like on the recreation topic, we won't get down to talking about we're going to have this program and that program, but we will talk about the types of programs that should be covered by the community, and talk about areas that are missing right now. So if there's certain age groups, some individuals talked about wanting to make sure we enhanced our senior offerings. There also was discussion about younger families in the community, how to, park enhancements. So we'll talk in a broad sense about what we're missing for helping some of our residents achieve their healthy lifestyles and healthy community. But we won't get down into actual recreational programming itself.
Thank you. That's all.
Any other comments? Yeah, excellent.
We appreciate the council taking a part of your Saturday out, and certainly everybody on the community. This is one of the larger groups we've had, and that's great. Smaller communities are often far more engaged in their futures, and so we enjoyed talking with everybody this morning, and we look forward to having a chance to talk to everybody over the next few years.
All right. And one last time, could you just say what the website is to go to? And maybe for those of you that did have some problems today, if you could either call us a number, would it just be the city number, or any way to be able to keep this public comments going, because we really need them?
Yes. So I would like to channel all communications as much as possible through the website that's built specifically for this general plan update process, which is www.plansolving.com. That's plansolving.com. Easy to remember. I would encourage people making comments and signing up for emails on that website. As our consultant has stated, all those comments will come to us. The consultants will engage the city when our city side of things is needed to make sure that this process is going smoothly. But of course, we're also available on our general website, on our City Hall email at cityofsolvang.com, and also just our City Hall phone number, which is 805-688-5575. And just, it's been a great turnout. We thank everybody for being here. And as was mentioned in the beginning, I don't want that message to be lost, that all of the surveys will be available. We'll also even make available copies that are in paper for those who, need the paper copy. They can pick up at the City Hall, and we'll continue to have a number of opportunities for public participation. There was one comment that came into the website about the timing of 10 o'clock on Saturday, and some people have to work at this time. So as we go forward, we'll make sure that we diversify the timing and the opportunities as much as possible and have some evening workshops and diversified opportunities for participation.
And just to reiterate, the workshop, the questionnaires and surveys that were shown today will be online on Monday, starting Monday morning, and they'll be active for 30 days to provide feedback. And we are working with the city to look at different formats for these meetings so that there is an option for community members, whether there are limited in-person events and digital and virtual events as well.
Will we also have possibly some Spanish translation type meetings offered for our Spanish-speaking community?
We can definitely look into that, yes. That's a very good comment.
Right. I would definitely appreciate that, because they're a large part of our community here, especially with our housing and workforce. So again, I'd like to thank all of the residents and folks that joined us via Zoom today. It's great to see so many people here, and hopefully we can, as I asked, if every one of you can share with at least 2 people, and we can make this even a bigger event for more people here and get more opinions, because that's what we are looking for right now. Would they be able to come to the city to get the little business cards if any of them want to share as well? That was
Yes,
another thought.
we do have those business cards available here at the city. They look like this, if anybody can see them. No, actually, you have them in your hands. But yes, we have business cards available. They look like this. You can pick them up here at the City Hall and help pass them out to at least those extra 2 people or more.
Yes, thank you. Please share this with your chat rooms as well. So thank you again for being here. Meeting is adjourned.